Today, the Quantum Questions podcast is on the subject of Lost in a Material World, presented by Greg Garrett. Greg Garrett is a co-founder of the Quantum Questions and is a presenter in the Who Am I series and How to Live a Good Life. Greg is an entrepreneur, was a self-made millionaire through property development. He was poor, rich, and he's now a practitioner of yoga and esoteric enquiry.
Hey, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be given the opportunity to communicate on such an important subject matter. And, lost in the material world can mean that we're lost to far more than just money. And hopefully I've been given 20 minutes and we have 10 minutes for a Q&A. But I've probably got enough material for a couple of days, maybe a week. So for those of you who want to come and sit at my house, and Lucy said, can you make it, Greg, like one of those talks you used to do in India, where you used to sit in the chai shop and people would arrive and they'd gather around me. And by the end of the evening, I'd have a big audience of people and I'd just be telling stories. So I put on a little bit of an Indian collar. Thought I'd wear my Gandhi glasses. Okay, so just so you could sort of get in touch with the idea of the chai shop. So the other thing then to tune you into India and the spirit of the chai shop is that I was given the Indian name Gopal or Gopala, and Gopal is the shepherd. So, and what's interesting is that the name that was given to me by my mum and dad didn't really trigger me or activate me, whereas the name Gopal, which means the shepherd, gets me into this spirit of wanting to reach out, to tell stories, to gather people together, and, in the sense of who am I? To then create this rich, fertile environment in which we can ask these deeper questions. So I feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose in terms of the name that was given to me, and I'll let you consider that as we go through this talk. So this talk is really a talk for those of you that have the ears to listen. And the reason I say that is because when we talk about being lost in the material world, there's the opportunity for you to be found. And the finding, I believe, really is a sense of finding yourself, or maybe finding an activity which triggers you in a way to awaken you, or finding a person in the form of a teacher who also supports you in awakening and moving beyond the material world. So there was I at the age of 6, and some of the content might activate some of you in certain ways. So if it does, just make notes and you can come back to Lucy or I or other members of the team later. So we don't want to leave any of you in challenging or difficult places. Yeah, elements of the story are difficult, and so therefore they need to be honored in that way. So there was I at the age of 6. And I believe up until the age of 6, I'd had bright eyes, I'd been wide awake, smiling throughout. And yet I would receive beatings on a regular basis. And beatings were sort of just a natural part of the environment. And yet as a young boy, I had this capacity to be able to smile through them. There was something inside of me much stronger at that point than what was going on in the material world. Yet at the age of 6, the material world, the world outside me, the physical world around me, became really difficult and challenging, to the point where even as a 6-year-old, I went and I sat, and the place is still there today, on this stone it's a very strange outjut on a road. And I sat there and I wept, and I had my head in my hands and I cried. And I made a decision at that point that either I was going to die because this place that we were in was so painful, or I was going to change. And in a strange way, the decision to change activated elements of my ego. And the elements of the ego that it activated was to begin to get me to swallow whole the stories that were going on around me, from parents, society, culture, and in the form of culture, we could possibly break it down into business. We've also got religion. So I started to swallow whole these elements, and began then using the other parts of me to pay specific attention to how it was you survived in the material world. And in fact, once you make a decision of that nature, it's interesting because the resources begin to mobilize differently. Looking back, the spirit of the child called Greg and the inner light began to diminish. But what began to emerge was the opportunity, which is very relevant today, to put on masks. And the masks that I began to find were, for example, the mask of the church. So here am I, part of the Catholic Church, and I'm talking about a long span now from the age of 6 onwards, where I'm interacting with the wealthiest, the biggest landowner in the world, and at the time, the wealthiest institution, that's telling you, due to hellfire and damnation, that you need to give everything up. And so here we have an organization saying, do what we say, not what we do. And the reason they're saying don't do what we do is because they'd amassed this incredible fortune. The church lived in a state of opulence. But as for the congregation, you were told to light your candles, to repent for your sins, to fill the plate. So you put your money on. It's like the way I look at it now, it's like they're telling you to form a bribery, make sure your contribution's big, make sure it's equivalent to what you can afford. And then, back in the day, people would go and give large sums of money. And more often than not, it was probably for guilt purposes. I can buy my way out of this situation. If we look at the family mind and we consider the material world, then actually my mum, strangely, she wanted a priest in the family. And so at the age of 11, she decided I was going to be the priest. So she packed me off to a junior seminary. We won't go into that tonight, but it was then found was run by a ring of paedophile priests. So yeah, in that environment, I was, while surrounded by treachery, which just fortunately I didn't directly encounter. There was also great opulence. Here am I in this priest training school, which, by the way, I refused to go to train to be a priest. So I was one of the only students there where my mum and dad were forced to pay the fees for me, because I said, I can't lie. I can't go to this school to train to be a priest and lie, which is what they wanted me to do. And the local priest was saying to me, go on, just say that and then it's free. And I'm like, I can't lie. But everyone around me wanted me to lie. Why? Because, survival in the material world meant these fees wouldn't need to be paid. And, so my mum and dad would benefit from that. So I go to the school, and there I am surrounded by, we had a 9-hole golf course. We had 8 football pitches. And we're talking about no more than 200 students between the age of 11 and 18. We didn't have enough boys in my school year to create a football team, but we had this opulence around us. We had 2 lakes that in the winter we would skate on. And this was like a huge castle, this building. So again, surrounded by opulence that all owned by the biggest landowner in the world, the church. And so you begin to consider, you know, what are the beliefs that inform me on my journey towards the actions that I or other people decided to take. And then you consider again the family environment where, well, if you're not being a priest, you're given a lot of labels that are seen as acceptable, you know, so, you know, become a doctor or a dentist or an accountant or a lawyer. And the more our parents begin to project onto us, probably the roles that they're now considering they'd have preferred to have done, the more that we get lost in this material world because, you know, we're being browbeaten or cajoled or, you know, motivated into identities and activities that really at the heart and the soul of us aren't probably what's aligned. And I'm not saying in all instances, there's some very gifted individuals that are highly dedicated in those particular roles. Yeah, most people then find themselves out of sorts because they're either listening to what the church is saying, they're listening to what the family's saying. But then business gets involved and, you know, business orientates itself towards the money. You know, business is designed to follow profitability. So, you know, people who go into research posts, so let's say in medicine or science, well, when they're bidding for monies, they can't bid to do research probably on, you know, certain natural cures for diseases that we've got in the environment. Well, why? Because no one will give them the money because that's not profitable. So therefore, we then find ourselves taking on roles inside of which we have to follow the money. We have to follow profitability. And I'm trying to give you a lens through which we can create a set of perceptions to say, do you know what, actually, it's incredibly, from a lot of angles, distorted. And because we're constantly being asked to navigate the world based on the way the divine play is being set up, which means that it's so easy to get lost in the material world. So there was I in my early 20s, and I got married very young, I'd already by now from the age of 6 through to 20, I got good at survival by then. I'd learned a lot of skills. I'd become a student of guess what? A student of making money. Why? Because, you know, this is what the world was telling me. The church was rich, businesses were rich, you know, everyone was pursuing money and wealth. And even though I know at the core of me it didn't feel right deep down inside, it was this egoic part of me now that was really orientated towards survival. So I became very good at it, and I went on several occasions through the process of making a million or millions. You know, I had times where even things like, you know, made £100,000 in a day. Some of you, I don't know if you want to translate that into your equivalent currencies, but and it sounds dramatic, and a lot of people, even on this call, might be, oh, wow, yeah, I'd love to be able to do that. And these things are possible in the world, you know, yeah. In terms of the function of getting lost in the material world, what is it that then the world is promoting around us? Well, you need bigger and you need quicker. So you need a bigger house. You need a bigger car. Well, bigger houses cost more, bigger cars cost more. And then once you position yourself inside of, let's say, certain neighborhoods, well, then you've got to keep up with all your neighbors. So in keeping up with your neighbors, you've got to buy all of the trinkets and the trimmings that go with that. And then if you introduce, because then you begin to think, well, God, yeah, I'm working hard, I'm earning all this money, but I'm not feeling fulfilled. So what do I need to do? I know what I need to do. I need to get married. So you get married, and You then find yourself in a partnership with someone where you were dissatisfied, they were dissatisfied. But you think between you, the two dissatisfied people, think of the laugh, can make one satisfied person. I mean, come on, let's do the maths on that. So then inside of the material world, the two dissatisfied people decide what? Well, we want to pursue more and quicker. What does that look like? Okay, bigger and better holidays, bigger and better cars. But that constantly is leading to dissatisfaction. And so you sit down one day and you say, you know, I know what will solve all this. I know what will make us ultimately happy. Let's have a child. So then we bring a child in. So we're following the material plan. Yeah, but we're just out in the world and we're accumulating. And then child one comes along and you went, what happened to date night? We used to go to the cinema 3 times a week, or we went out for meals 3 times a week. And now you've got shitty nappies, ill children, nights in A&E, you know, wondering because no one gives you a manual. Oh my God. So all that happens is we get this change in the material plan, but then you work out, well, we're not happy, the kid's not happy. I know what we'll do. Let's bring another kid. We need another kid. The kid needs a friend to play with. Let's have another child. And you know, if you look around you, you know, the way that we operate in the material world is we're constantly adding things. We're constantly pursuing outside of ourselves. So I added 3 children, beautiful as they are, messed up as I've managed to make them at this point. And then I decided, well, do you know what? I don't want my kids speaking with a Liverpool accent. Okay, that wouldn't be good. So I decided to take them off to a fantastic school in the Lake District. And that meant it was £1 million over their lifetime in school fees. So I had to earn that. So my hamster wheel's now going quicker. I'm having to run harder and faster. But do you know what? With expensive schools, what comes? Expensive friends. And with expensive friends comes the best iPhones. And with the best iPhones comes the best laptops, comes dressing rooms in certain ways, certain presents at Christmas. So we now have got this absolute monster to the point where, for me personally, I was running a mini economy. And, you know, my mini economy I ran, and I honestly don't know how. I've got more insights now as to how I did it. Yeah, my mini economy, you know, some months was running in excess of £20,000 sterling a month. And actually up until fairly recently was running at like 15,000 sterling a month. Some people would be like, oh, wow. And I'm saying that just to show, but because what that means is I am having to somehow manipulate the material world outside of me to get a slice of the funds that are being printed. By the way, you know, they just print more cash. So I realized they were printing that, whenever there's a shortage of money, what do? The Fed or the UK government just print some more. And then they've got these incredible little coins that they put in the vault that they tell you are worth like $1 trillion billion. And they have the cheek showing you this little coin that they've put in a corner somewhere. This is where the $1 trillion billion. Well, I got good at playing the game to the point that on one morning, there's a knock at my door, and the door gets forced in. There's armed officers, there's armed people on my drive. They come to my bed, they hold me at gunpoint, and they say, you know what you've done, don't you? And I'm like, no. Anyway, they decided that I'd learned how to print money and that the way I'd done it was illegal. Cut that story short for those of you who want an entertaining evening. We can do a whole chai shop on this one. 14 years later, I'm found innocent. I'm seen to be incredibly clever, along with my brother-in-law. went from being told by my solicitors and barristers, you realize nobody ever wins these cases against the state, to actually winning it. But there's a point in the case which is a pivotal point. Just tell me when I'm up for time, Lucy, because I'll draw it into a conclusion. There's a point in the case where I'm sat and I'm actually decided that it's better that I get sent down, I go to jail, than go home. That's how shattered I am. That's how destabilized I am. And then when I sit with that space for a little while longer, I'm like, something very wrong about the place I've arrived at. And from the age of 6 to that moment where I'm sat in the courtroom, I have put on so many masks and I have played the game so hard that, in the words of Karl Marx, and there's some beautiful essays on this, I have become alien to myself. I have cut off from the core of myself, and I have gone so far from who I am that I not only am alien to myself, let's look at some of the other alienations. I'm alien to nature because I wasn't paying attention to nature. I was consuming, but I wasn't putting back. This is what it's like to get lost in the material world. I was alien to friends. I didn't need friends. I needed to earn money. I needed opportunities. I was alien to friendship. In fact, real deep friendships was something that had long since gone, something, maybe, back at boarding school or so not only had I become alien to myself, here I am, I'm alien to nature, I'm alien to friendships. And in fact, I've alienated myself really in terms of then my family. Yeah, most importantly, I've alienated myself in terms of my deeper inner connection to myself and who I am. And I don't know how many times I cried in and around that period. And I'm in my 40s at this point. Yeah, I've realized that I have gone so far from home. I've got pains in my body that, are unbelievable. Even though I do work out, I did work out then. I'm working out in order to just survive, to hang on. I'm not working out to thrive. I'm totally out of alignment with my physical body. My mind is in complete chaos. I'm totally out of alignment with my mind. And in terms of a connection to my heart space, I have got so many layers that I've put over my heart at this point. It's, my heart is buried deep in a vault deep within me. And I have become the most masterful communicator in terms of being able to get to live and yet be lost in what it is that we're referring to here as the material world. So just going to pause for a moment while you start to just consider, what's it been like for you? What have you bought into? What is it you've bought into with regards to family, religion, culture, business? What are the masks that you've put on that you can even see? Yeah, it's like, well, how do I get them off? How do I begin to turn the corner, to change direction, and to begin to reconnect and re-emerge? And the beauty of the way that we've been built, which I fully appreciate and understand now, is that the pain, the agonies, and let me tell you, many dark nights of the soul, night terrors, waking up in the morning in pools of sweat, night after night after night. And I don't say that lightly. It's just that somewhere inside of us, there's a calling. And as it gets worse and we get darker and deeper into it, the calling still continues. It's calling us back to balance. So no matter how far you get from your center by going outwardly into the material world, this calling will continue. And the further you get, the more painful it will become. Until you do what? You turn around and you begin to head back home again. Which for me, it makes great sense when we, and I don't want to go woo-woo or biblical on you. We listen to stories like the prodigal son, which could equally be the prodigal daughter. It's a return home. It's the opportunity, no matter how far we've gone. And I can totally see my story now as a story that relates to the story of the prodigal son. So when we then begin to turn it around, what are the sort of things that start to happen in and around us? Well, we start to not just say words like authenticity. We begin to want to taste, to listen to look at, to experience what authenticity really is. To be an authentic woman or man in this world. And the great news is there are maps available to us. Maps that help us to get back into balance. And they've been around us for many, many, many years. These are ancient maps, ancient teachings. One of which is deep enquiry, just to keep it nice and simple. So when you're on this call, you're accessing one of these ancient maps, one of these opportunities to begin as a prodigal daughter or son, to return to balance. But it means climbing, and climbing takes effort, and sometimes super effort. And when I say, I went through many dark nights of the soul, I did. Yeah, I was supported and I was guided, supported by wonderful people around me, whether it was Sam, Lucy, Advaita, other amazing souls, or whether I was simply supported by the fact that I knew the lack of effort that I'd put in and now the requirement for me to turn that around. So having the courage and the commitment to being able to climb from a dark, deep starting place in order to regain what? I didn't even feel like I belonged in the world. And some of you will know what that's like. Yet to begin to follow these maps in a way that not only do you find again a place where you belong in the world, you feel grounded in this world, you feel set, you feel certain standing on the earth again. And that's something that I've managed to do over the last 5 years or so, even though it's taken me a lifetime and maybe many more lifetimes before that in terms of my whole story. And so what then begins to emerge from it? Well, the things that are important start to change. In fact, how much money do we really need? And this is for those of you that have got ears to hear it. How much does it cost to hold someone's hand and walk down the street? How much does it cost to look someone in the eye and say, I love you? How much does it cost to go out into nature and to see a flower entering bloom? Or to admire the leaves as the wind blows them from the trees and they yield, they just give themselves up? How much does it cost to get a cup of cacao with a friend and to blow your heart open? What does it cost to pick up a drum, to drum together? What does it cost to play a track that you like and to sing out loud? What does it cost to recite poetry? What does it cost to simply listen to music that moves you? What does it cost to embrace someone and just hold them close, hold them tight? What does it cost to sit in silence? What does it cost to make love to someone? What does it cost to simply sit and be present? What does it cost to be a great buddy? What does it cost to look for and find your tribe, and then find yourself in a community of people that really do care about you and for you? And so what my journey has taught me, and just so you know, my monthly outgoings now, because Lucy started on something material, so I'll just round it for you, is I let go of the hamster wheel and the treadmill. And there was some incredibly difficult conversations with children who had cars and phones and monthly payments and, payments to all sorts of people needed to go, clearing credit cards, debts, and even business interests that I was involved in. I left, but I left in a way where I would only leave at a point that I'd tidied everything up impeccably. This is not about walking away from anything. This is about us taking our lessons. And in fact, every moment in life I understand is a lesson. And it's a lesson from a material point of view that will either take you further away from who you truly are or closer to it is that you truly are. And when you begin to return, what happens? Well, you stop using your mind as an instrument or a tool through which you manipulate, you cajole, you motivate. You start to open up the faculties that are really important, which are what? You begin to navigate through the heart. What does that mean? It means that I'm on this planet with other human beings, people that are equal to me. Everybody matters. Not when you operate with the mind into the material world. It's I, me, mine. I'm the only one who matters. So when you get back in touch with these faculties, you open the heart. Everybody begins to matter again. What else happens? Well, not only do you get in touch with your heart, you learn to silence the mind. Imagine a silent mind. Why? Because the mind was only ever designed to deal with specific instructions that was given to it. It was always meant to be the heart that was giving the sense of direction. And what else happens? We get back in touch with our intuition. We get back in touch with our gut feeling. Imagine this is what it means to begin to be a whole, what I call a whole human being. Not someone lost in the material world or the material mind. Someone who's beginning to open these broader faculties. And what else then happens is you learn to use positive imagination. You become someone who's orientated towards optimism and opportunity. Think about this. Positive imagination. Why is that so important? Well, because if you look at a lot of the reports and what science tells us is that we're naturally orientated towards negativity. Maybe there's a clue in there that as a society, as families, through religion, through business, through culture, that's the way we've trained ourselves. Whereas in fact, we are entitled to, provided we train it, to a positive imagination. So imagine for a moment operating from your heart, having this positive imagination, the mind being silent or only being active when it is that you choose to allow it to be active. And all the time having your intuition constantly supporting you throughout. So what I'm suggesting to you is don't choose to get too lost in the material world. And a lot of you'll tell yourself stories about how you're not doing it. I've told myself all the stories. But it does require courage, strength, determination, willpower, phenomenal inner forces that are all available to us. Nonetheless, we have to have the courage and determination to want to choose to change. And then life, and I'll finish on this, life can be magical. Why? Simply because we really do, for those of you with the ears to listen, pay attention to the things that are really important, that actually cost very little or nothing at all. Thank you.
If you'd like to know more about the quantum questions, please go to the website www.thequantumquestions.com.